Everybody, hey,
everybody, or have people introduce themselves, or how do you want to do that?
Yep, I'll do that. Hold on. Hey, this is Bridgette Lyn Dolgoff. I'm hosting the Think Colabbing today. Today is June 5th, and we've got a host of people, and the topic is going to be around numbers. And so everybody coming to it kind of has their own kind of ideas about numbers, so it should be a pretty good interaction. And all right, so I'll have everybody introduce themselves. Lenny, you want to go first?
Sure, I'm Dr. Lenny Thyme, a freelance chemist, and my interest in numbers has to do with quantitative and qualitative measures.
All right, Learnshare.
Hello, this is Learnshare. I'm very interested in numbers, always have been. Called foul on my teachers as a child, and ever since then have been observing nature, laughing at what I was taught. I can't help but want to share what I've found so far, but I'm just getting started, it feels like.
Okay, Par, do you want to tell us about yourself?
Sure. I'm Per in my native language. I try to go by Par from Sweden. And well, I'm joining here, and I have quite an interest to learn or be curious. And in that, well, on that path, you will stumble upon lots of subjects, and number will be intricately intertwined with lots of subjects. The more you dig deeper. So.
All right. So also, I just want to remind everybody to, if you can get to the chat here on Skype and you have links about numbers or things that you have in your little database, you can post them here, and I'll post these links on the Think Collab when I post the video. So it's always good to have, rabbit holes. All right, Ryan, you want to tell us about yourself?
Okay. Well, so my background is in mathematics. I have a master's degree in pure math. So I do have some perspective on numbers from that avenue. But at the same time, I'm also a shaman, and I ascribe to my own sort of idiosyncratic scheme of numerology. So we can kind of get at it from any number of standpoints. I have zero agenda with this conversation, just try to add where I can.
All right. And I'm Bridgette Lyn Dolgoff, and I don't know really nothing about numbers. So I glean off whatever other people. I've been learning a lot about the Fibonacci sequence from Lenny over the last few years, and trying to apply that kind of knowledge. But the only thing that I can pertain is that from the earliest development, I couldn't do math because I had a serious problem with numbers, and they all had different personalities, and some liked each other, some didn't like each other. Sometimes when you add or subtract them, they'd get really angry because they wouldn't want to be near that number, doing that kind of a thing. So when I was around 23, I studied with a Lakota Sioux medicine woman from the elk family. And one of the things we talked about was numbers. And she said that I was absolutely right, that numbers have personalities like people, and they either get along or they don't. And depending on what we do with them, kind of a scenario. So that's all I have to offer. So I'm just mostly hosting. So who wants to start the combo?
I will start, and I will jump on Fibonacci, because actually I've been in the business of teaching, and to teach is better than to be a teacher. A teacher is a title, and title is equal to a substantive, how do you say it in English? So, the grammar of things. So that's more akin to a slave if you're a title or a thing. But if you teach, you're in action. But Fibonacci, I actually have a background in teaching math and science, and that's long since past. But I can relate to you, Bridgette, in because when I meet students, you have to try to relate to their world and how they can try to get under the skin of things. So in my own research later in life, Fibonacci will be one of these guys, an Italian. He was around in the I think in the Arabic world, and so he has this famous, he takes first 0 and then he takes 1, and then he adds the first with the second, and it gets a sum. Then the last digit he has, that's the 1, he take it together with the sum. But actually, well, if you continue, you will get the proportion between those two numbers you're adding or manipulating, working with, and those will turn into the so-called golden ratio or golden mean. And it's kind of one of the beautiful numbers in mathematics. And the funny thing, you could actually start with whatever number and do the same procedure. Take one number, you take another number, and then you add them together. And this sum, you will compare it with the larger number you had before, and then make a ratio, and then compare it and go on. The longer you go on, the approximation of the golden ratio will be more clear, and it doesn't matter really what number you start with. You could actually start with what number, whatever, but the famous his famous variation is to start with 0 and 1. And I will jump back because I'll leave my contribution here about this for more of you to speak. And I want to talk about the numbers 0 and 1 later.
Yes.
Well,
go ahead.
Sorry. So the process of taking the last number in the sequence, summing it with the previous number to derive the subsequent number, right? That's a two-dimensional linear system. So the reason that phi and phi inverse are actually eigenvalues of this system, you can do this, and so it really doesn't matter what vector you start with, whether it's 1, 1 or 0, 1 or 1,000. Sorry, that's all I was saying is that yes, you will eventually get things that approach phi and phi inverse because those are the eigenvalues of the abstract system.
Yeah,
I've found that nature tends to count in Fibonacci as opposed to counting in normal number sequences. And so you can go out to a lot of different things like sunflowers or artichokes and count the numbers in the different waves and find that they all conform to the Fibonacci sequence, the golden mean ratio. And so what I've been doing is looking at the theory of the relationships between small numbers and applying them to human scale, so that a human in a group of 1 has 100% of his time. As it expands to a group of 2, now you contribute roughly 50% plus or minus the 10%, so you get 60-40, which is the ratio that the golden mean professes. When you move up to 3, you add another person to the group. The amount of time each person has vested is 33%, a third. But the dynamics of the situation is that if 3 people are on the same page working together, you get a lot more understanding and knowledge, way more than each of the 3 individuals have working alone. So there definitely is a flow between the Fibonacci sequence and what I call group theory, which in chemistry has to do with the relationship of atoms and molecules in space, but also is a sociological term. And small groups of people really do drive the human world.
Group theory is also a mathematical term, which could, in essence, be brought to bear. Again, I was just talking about looking at this as a linear operator and finding, it's ultimate. When you take high powers of an operator that has, distinct eigenvalues, then ultimately everything tends toward either the vanishing or the extending value, phi or phi inverse. And that's essentially part of group theory. I don't want to get into explaining exactly what that is, but it's a shared term, I suppose.
Yeah, group theory in mathematics is a lot about vector algebra.
Or functions, or there's many different ways of conceiving it. Yeah.
I'd like to speak on this Fibonacci sequence, and I'd like to add to it if you don't mind. It's a 24 cycle. It's a every 24 times. There's a couple of graphs I dropped in this chat. If you want to pull it up, it demonstrates it, so I don't have to. Don't take my word for it type thing.
Hold on 1 second. Let me go to
Okay.
the start. Hold on. Okay.
Yes, the first
start?
one.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And so, oh wait, let me go back here because I'm going to have to screen share. So hold on 1 second. Okay. And we're going to screen share that. Oh, wait.
Take your time.
I know. It's like I get I have to use all kinds of different programs and for different things, and sometimes I get kind of overwhelmed and confused by it. Let me get back. Okay, so hold on 1 second. So I have to figure out how this one screen shares again versus how the other ones that I use technology. Okay, let me go back here and do, well, let me just see if it'll screen share. And okay, start sharing. Let's do that. Computer sound, sharing. Okay, let me see. There we go. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Awesome.
All right. Now, if you'll notice at the 12th uh,
Your
in the
position.
sequence, in the sequence,
Yeah.
it repeats again inverted. In other words, it's a 24 cycle. If you add them all up horizontally and reduce them down, this is your number of sequences on the right hand side of this Fibonacci. And it goes in 12, but it inverts to another 12. So it's actually a 24 cycle before it repeats again. And 24, 2 plus 4 is 6. And then we have this 12 cycle, 1 plus 2 is 3. I think you know where I'm going with this. Anyway, in this 12 sequencing and 24 sequencing, we have direct relationships with what we call time that we keep, etc. But if you take the numbers, the base number on the right side of the Fibonacci sequence itself, and you take the second dozen and overlay it over the first dozen, they all equal 9. And there are mirrors here, but I don't want to go too much further than what I'm sharing right now as far as Fibonacci goes.
Do you want to look at the second one here? Do you want me to show the second?
Not yet, no ma'am. I mean, we're just on Fibonacci, and I just wanted to share what I found, and as the conversation progresses, we'll go probably back to some of those charts maybe, or some new ones, who knows.
Okay, awesome. So just so you know, I have no idea what you said, or, I could see the numbers on the thing. That's how kind of Greek it is to me. But I know that you guys understand it a lot more. So I'm going backward. Anybody else want to talk now?
Yes, let's start to make it. Well, my older brother, he tries to tease me a lot when your teacher, he will enjoy if you say I'm complicated and like, are you really teacher? But well, I used to be. It's like 10 years ago something. But you start with 0 and then add 1. The sum will be 1. Now you have the sum and you take the last number. If the last number, you started with 0 and then you take 1. So 1 is the last number. Someone here had a fancy term in English. Well, math is in Swedish in my like skills. So I have to try to adopt what I can. But so the 1 is the last of the digits you operated with before, and you get the sum 1. So now you take 1 plus 1, and that equals 2. And now you will take your 2, the sum, plus the last digit you had, that was a 1, and that equals 3. And now you will take the sum 3 and add it with the number 2 you had, and it's like you'll type this, you'll write it down on a paper, so it will be quite natural, Bridgette, for you to see the numbers. First you will write a 0 and 1, and after that you will look at on these two numbers and you will see, well, the sum is 1, and you put a 1 on the right side of this, and to continue this series of numbers. And now the two last numbers you will see on the paper is 1 and 1, and that will add up for 2, of course. And then you write the 2 next to it, and then you will go on. So actually those numbers is kind of, let's take an example. If you run this number, you will get the sequence. And in the sequence, you will see a lot of these numbers actually is put in front of our eyes a lot in many situations, not just like mentioned about nature. So in nature, we will find this because it's a very efficient way to work in this ratio. The ratio is how you compare the numbers. You divide the big number with the large number, and in this sequence, the result will always tend to come into 1.618034 something. So after a while, you will come up and let's say the numbers.
21, 35.
13, of course, is among the Fibonacci numbers. Some other 144, that's square of 12, and 233. 610, 987, and if you watch movies, if you listen to music, there's all these secrets in plain sight they enjoy to put in front of us. So right. These numbers will very often just appear, and actually I have an email address which I will shorten down to the consonants, and it's double square at protonmail.com. So if anyone would like to contact me, that's a clever way. But the double square, it's only with the consonants, without the vowels. So it will be dblsqr at protonmail.com. But a double square very beautifully hides, even in a better way than the mathematicians. They like to show the creation of the golden ratio from a square, but the double square is actually much more easier. Well, that will everybody discuss according to their point of view. And now I will try to go back in my storyline and see to the numbers that comes from this famous Fibonacci sequence, like the number 233. Of course, when I imported products to Norway, I run in business from Sweden to Norway. I come with products to import. I have to pay some fees on this and that, but then I will have to use the card to pay. When I use the card to pay, the customs officer, he says like, well, there is a fee attached to using the card, and the fee is 233 crowns. And that's kind of the very obvious way you will see in business, like people working with business, they love all these numbers. Well, number 13 is in the Fibonacci series. It's in lots of other ways. So there will be many levels of things you can say, you can put as secrets in plain sight in front of unsuspecting viewer of reality, and you can check him a little bit, like you push this number in front of him and you see if he will react, and maybe he will like show his skills or his discipline or his knowledge base from like picking this little delicate thing or this little kind of beauty. In many ways, it will be very easy to discover these numbers if you just make this series a couple of times. You write first a 0 and a 1, and you look at it. And well, what's the sum of this? It's 1, of course. And then you write 1 next to this, and you go on in a line to place up the numbers going on. And well, spend time with it. It's like, as you said, Bridgette. Well, some is my friends and some is not, and you will maybe invite yourself to pick along more friends in the stable of the numbers and the math skills and well, everything else that will talk to you in life. I will pause here.
So I just have a question. So Tar, if you were buying something and then they said, okay, the tax is $233, what would you think at that moment? What would 233 tell you about the situation?
Well, the tax will be normally connected to a percentage of something you will turn around or something, what you buy. But this was a service fee. I met it as a service fee. I will say the people, in my case, I will go to my case. In my case, when I used the card to pay the full amount, they also took 233 crowns in service fee for me using the card. And I will just smile to myself and say, of course, it's this number. It's too natural. It should be that number. That's the perfect way to show like they are the master of their game, and here's a little bit of proof from it. Like, well, because in business there is all too many small signals about them, how they master their art, sort of, and how
so what would be 233? I mean, what would be kind of like the meaning about that they would charge that? I'm just asking a question because I don't see things in numbers.
It's a Fibonacci number.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right.
Yeah, well, good question. Great. That's the way to go. That's
all right. All right. I yield. I'm yielding.
Well, I have also looked at another way of looking at numbers. Back in the 1950s and 60s, there was an architect named Buckminster Fuller who did a lot of spatial design, and he had a gentleman working with him named Bob Marshall. And Marshall had the ability to see relationships between numbers in space, but he couldn't actually take it down to paper to write a mathematical equation in the traditional sense. But as he was working with Fuller, he was writing a lot of notes on the topic he called numeronomy, which concerned prime numbers and how they work together. And he developed a system of things called holotomes, which are like tiered fractals based on prime numbers. A couple of quotes from Marshall: the base 10 concept of number, with its attending 4 fundamental operations of arithmetic, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, is a basic block of ideas that comprise geometrical notation, but it's not a human invention. It's rather a discovery of the human mind. And Marshall was kind of cynical. He also said, to believe that everything is already known about numbers is the reason why nothing has been discovered in this critical field for many centuries. So I'd like to read a little bit of his commentary on the holistic nature of numbers, because I think it sets the ideas of what numbers are into a foundation that not only fits Fibonacci, but also fits Lorentz transformations and other higher mathematical games that Ryan's probably familiar with.
Hey, Lenny, can I ask you just a question? This is Marshall who?
Bob Marshall.
Bob Marshall. Okay, thank you very much.
Bob Marshall, and he worked with Buckminster Fuller.
Good, we're good. Okay.
Okay, here we go. The 0, decimal placement, the base of 10, geometry, and the 4 fundamental operations of arithmetic, as well as counting, are all functions of a single complex topic. These functions, generally regarded as separate ideas that have evolved slowly over a long period of time, are in fact so intimately dependent that none of them could exist apart from the others. Which is
I
to
agree with
say,
that.
yeah, it's to say that each of these concepts are merely members of an invisible and irreducible complex concept. The first clue that number and geometry are two sides of the same coin is found in Pythagorean rectangles to begin with, like 3, 4, and 5. This shows that the whole integers have geometric properties, and or vice versa, that the geometry and the numbers are equally involved with each other, and only via notations are they manifest as separate ideas and concepts. The 0, the decimal placement, and the base of 10 are 3 ways of expressing circularity or recurrence. All functions have all of these being functions of this sub-math complex. Addition is the reverse of subtraction. Multiplication is the reverse of division. So these pairs of binomial functions are attributed to number and geometry complex, and they preclude the notion of linearity, which is the current basis of all geometry. Because of the fact that any one of these ideas won't fly without the support of other ideas, means that the 0, the decimal placement, the base 10, geometry, arithmetic, and counting all are a single complex concept and probably occurred to one isolated individual at some point in remote history. I find it interesting how the tie-ins between numbers come about in such a way that no matter how you look at the numbers, what's implied from the numbers implies more about the numbers. And so I think that the base 10 system is a construct which we've had as an overlay, which has been taught to us in school in so many different ways that a lot of people get confused when they switch from the metric system, which is base 10, to the English system, which is based on a hand, a foot, or other things in the real world of things. But Marshall was an odd bird, and there was a lot of things that he contributed to the idea of geodesic domes and geometry that were outside of the realm of how people consider math now these days. But he also developed a means of predicting prime numbers, which is something that most mathematicians find extremely difficult. And, well, maybe I'll go into this a bit later. Let other people comment.
So the one thing that I find an exception with is the whole base 10 concept. I mean, the rest of it is all of those concepts are inextricably united, and I'll expound on what I mean. So, okay, if anybody's familiar with computer engineering, you know what a memory register is. So there's kind of this concept, and I'm using this digital metaphor, but it's, in essence, what we have are 7 registers. As human beings, we have 7 registers in our heads, which means that we can hold 7 units of information in our minds at one time, and no more. And you can see this really easily. I remember there was that website Lumosity that did the, whatever, supposedly educational games. They had one that was kind of fun. It would just flash like a certain number of objects at you for a split second, and you had to identify the actual number. It's just a counting game, but you had to be very fast. Numbers up to 7, you don't have to count. You recognize them. You will recognize them with high accuracy without even counting, without even thinking about it. When you start getting 8, 9, 10, 11, then you actually start having to group different. You have to group the objects into smaller subsets and use addition in order to identify what that number is. In other words, what I'm saying is the numbers 1 through 7 are very concrete to us from our physical experience. Numbers higher than 8 or 8 and above are actually in some way abstractions to us as humans, because we actually need to process, we need to group and add together, which, I mean, grouping and addition are really, addition is just a mathematical formalization of what we do when we group, 5 sheep and 3 sheep or whatever it is. So the whole concept of addition is part of our working concept of numbers. And, Richard Adams wrote Watership Down, right? In that book, or he wrote a couple of them actually, but the rabbits can only count up to 4. And this is the same kind of thing, that because they don't have the abstraction, everything like 1,000 or infinity is also the same number as 5 to them, because they can't count beyond 4. And it's because they haven't developed this abstraction of grouping or addition. And when you get to multiplication, that's when numbers and geometry become the same thing. When you start understanding that, hey, if I have, so many groups of so many each, then I can kind of lay them out in a, rectangular grid, or however you want to conceive of it. None of this actually has to do with the base of 10, though. We can work off of any integer base and get a similar counting system that would function for us. And the base of 10 is very interesting. I'm not going to say that it's not. I think it's suggestive. It speaks to something about our minds, but I don't think it's actually totally inextricable with those other concepts.
I like to use a base of 8 at times, and I know that computer code relies totally on a base of 2 binary in addition to a base of 16 hexadecimal. And so it's obvious that we're not restricted to base 10. It's that the base 10 system has been co-opted into the reality to the point where I don't think many people can think outside of base 10.
That's true. I can speak from experience. It's very difficult to get students to understand expressing numbers in other bases.
Well, there's some heavy leaning. I'm sorry. The leaning towards counting in base 10 is so overwhelming. So it's like with students. I heard one teacher. He said something that impressed me, and he said, "Well, I know a teacher when I was a kid. He could write upside down when he came to my desk to explain something." And I thought, well, that's interesting. I'll start to practice. And then you'll have to switch your logic in your brain, and actually you will activate the right side of your brain to cooperate a little bit more, because now I know how I write the letter A, the capital letter A, when I sit here in my own view. But if I should write it for the opposite, 180 degrees opposite, how would I do it? And then you'll walk through all the letters, capital and lesser, to get this out and start to. And you will find yourself like you're sitting on the school bench yourself, 7 years old, starting all over. And that's kind of it's exercise in humility. But counting in other bases is actually very, very interesting, because that's when you start to open your brain to invite larger understanding, and the more interesting questions will come. So maybe I'll stop there because Lenny, you said some interesting things there. Maybe I'll make a comment, and Ryan, you make really nice conversations or topics you broach on. So they're really nice too. So, and you both have the advantage of having math or numbers. Because Bridgette, I bet you're interested in numbers too. We should try to invite you in again to talk a little bit, because numbers is well, digits and numbers, and actually what words means. A word is a sign. The sign is like, well, I'm Swedish, so let's walk around here and we'll see a sign. It says Stockholm, and it's pointing a direction. And then you could stand there and go to some person and say, hey, I know what Stockholm is. Yeah, huh? Okay. He says, what's Stockholm? Well, we'll go here, and you'll show him the sign, and you will point as the sign points that direction. You'll say, that's where Stockholm is. Okay. He says, and now tell me more. Well, then you have to maybe follow the sign, and all other information you could try to come closer to this object in question. To learn well, and you will have a long travel. The man that makes a travel, he has a story to tell. So you will learn yourself. The path of life is to walk and see what comes along, and you will at times go like a robot on autopilot. You will learn a lot of things, but you cannot learn all the time. You have to do some things automatic. So the seven register memory positions in the human brain. That's interesting to think about. And so well, I'm starting to lose my thread here. You can all go on, because well, learning to count in other bases, like you could say, let's have base 3. Let's invent other symbols for this counting system. Let's do this, let's do that. And that's actually what would make a lot more children or anyone more engaged in learning and asking good questions, because asking good questions is the best teacher. And the teacher, sadly, many times is the one that learns the most in the class, because he has to think a lot about trying to introduce and to well, describe things, and on and on and on.
Indeed. And I think I really like your little exercise of writing upside down. All of these things, like even just, some simple coordination exercise like that. But what it does is it's engaging your neural pathways, right? Mm-hmm. And it's helping you to learn. It's reinforcing your learning to be a better teacher, because you're practicing this little task at the same time as you're trying to empathize with the student's misunderstanding or whatever it is.
Yeah, sure.
Seems to me that you can't be a good teacher if you're not continually learning.
Yes, I agree. As I always say, a good teacher is an excellent student that continues to learn, and
all
educated.
You go on.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, if you have something you want to, I can wait.
No.
Okay. Well, anyway, yeah, the way math is misrepresented as this pile of insurmountable amount of data you must memorize, instead of teaching us just how to calculate for ourselves. That's criminal in itself to me. But moving on, I would like to share my findings and what's helped me have a better comprehension of not just math, but how it practically applies to different things. And anyway, I would like to, if you don't mind, pull up that first chart again. And
okay, hold on 1 second. I'm going to be searching it out. Hold on 1 moment, please.
Oh, take your time.
Go ahead.
Anyway, yeah, what I would like to demonstrate is what I call reverse Fibonacci, and I think it's gonna be named Cheranachi or something or whatever by one of my friends that's helping me um, realize this math. He First he just heard what I was speaking of and was interested because he's been studying for a few decades evidently. And he's like, "What is this sequence you speak of?" He's not American. He has accent anyway. Um,
Mhm.
have accent. I know. I'm aware. Okay. I'm just saying. To me, he has accent. Everybody has accent to me, but I'm the one with an accent. Anyway, this perspective. But this. As soon as he heard me speak of these number patterns, he wanted the proof of what I spoke of.
Okay, so
Let's
hold
see.
on. Can you
That
guys see
that's
this? Hold on.
the
Can,
second one. Yeah,
can you see that?
Yes, we
yeah.
see.
Oh, good.
That's
All right.
that's the second one there.
Is that the one you wanted or the first one?
I want to go back to the first one while we're still scratching the surface before we get too deep.
Okay, hold on. We get back. This one?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, there you
Thank
go.
you very much.
You're welcome.
I would like everybody to look at the one that is entitled Reversanachi. Notice
Yes. Mhm.
there's a gap above the one. Well, anyway, that's 0. Okay. Reversanachi is taking from 0, literally, not, I'm talking about in integrals, and adding the next integral to it. So 0 plus the next integral, which is 1, equals 1. And then 1
Okay. With the next number, that's 2 equals 3.
equals 3. And then 3 with the next number, which is 3,
4.
equals 6. And then 4 equals 10. Anyway, it's Reversanachi. But the number pattern it does with balance um, is beautiful.
It sounds
goes
like you're actually coming up with triangular numbers that way.
evidently.
Is that what you're doing? That sounds
Yes.
like the sequence of triangular numbers.
Yes. But this is a beginning scratching the surface of comprehending that it is the reverse of Fibonacci. You see what I'm saying? It's not only just triangular numbers, but as far as its relationship with other numbers is what we're finding and looking for, because we're nerds, I guess. We're interested. But anyway, if you'll notice the first 9 spaces there with, anyway, the one that says 1 or, 10 in the sequence equals, 1 plus 0 equals 1.
Mhm.
So, anyway, from there going up is 6319. And then from there going down is 6319. Okay. And then you go down to the pair of 9s down there. All right. And between those 9s is a mirror as well.
Oh, yeah.
Up
I see.
91361, and then going down 91361.
Mhm.
Anyway, this is coming from true 0. This is the one that fits, but it's the balance, it's the counter, it's the opposite. Anyway, that's just to help people comprehend what we're doing is we're taking these numbers and we're adding them up horizontally, and then when they turn into multiple digits, we add those up horizontally. And this pattern, it doesn't fail. It proves itself over and over and over, no matter how far we go.
Interestingly,
go ahead.
Interestingly, the triangular numbers and the Fibonacci sequence can both be found within Pascal's triangle.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And, well, okay, everybody's, well, next to whoever's next.
Well, I find it interesting that the numbers that recur there are 3, 6, and 9, and the 1 is essentially a proxy for a 0 because there
Correct.
is no 0 in the summation.
Exactly.
Well,
3, 6, and
it's three of the power 0.
You see
Well,
this
that
now?
doesn't matter. It wasn't powers. Okay, I'm sorry.
Not
Go on.
yet.
Yeah,
We're just scratching the surface right now.
yeah, sure.
the relationship of 3, 6, and 9 has been the focus of people like Nikolai Tesla and Marco Rodin for quite a while. And there's a lot of great number theory when you work with a base from 1 through 9 at how the 3, 6, and 9 form one set of numbers. 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, and 5 form a second group with the other 6 numbers, and that they pretty consistently hold to themselves.
I see it even more. Oh, hush. Can I speak?
Sure.
Yes, please.
Okay, the 3, 6, 9. All right. Balance. Anyway, this 10 base system, which people call 10 base, which 9 is the highest value single digit of. So whatever. Okay, whatever. People call it what you want. But this is what we call, I mean, across the board, we recognize when we hear it as 10 base math. But 9 proves itself in so many ways in this circuitry, in this modality of threes is what I call it. As a musician, I can't help it. It's what I see, the music. But anyway, if you go in modality of threes, starting with 0, you go 3, you get 3. You go 3 more, you get 6. You go 3 more, you get 9. Okay, you go start with 1. You skip 3, you get 4. You skip 3, you get 7. Well, you add those up, you get 12. Well, 1 plus 2 is 3. Then you go to the next circuit, which is 2, 5, and 8, or modality of threes. And it's 2 plus 5 is 7, plus 8 is 15, which is a 1 and a 5. 1 plus 5 equals 6. And then the 3, 6, 9 is 3 plus 6 is 9, plus 9 is 18. 1 plus 8 is 9. 3, 6, 9. It keeps showing itself. No matter what base math, we've gone up to 64 base math, and it still shows itself. It does not matter. This is part of the 3, 6, 9, showing itself, proving itself true. And 9, well, there's so many different ways, but I'll step back for now.
Well, I will try to step in with. You mentioned Bob Marshall before, and you said like in a well yonder's way back times there would be one person to come up with this first before anyone else, and I would argue that life itself lends it to calculate, to make a prognosis of tomorrow or whatever. And I read many years of an intelligent Finnish man grown up in Sweden, in Denmark as a war child during the Second World War, and he ended up in Sweden for his adult working life. And he in old age started to dig into history, local history, and that expanded very fast. But I would say he says cleverly, like the highest leader is time, or how to follow the sequence. And actually, I'll say some well, to sound clever statements from different persons along with what I say now. But the same man said, well, and the counter of time is the night sky. It's not the day sky. So the sun, of course, the rhythms of the sun is very clear, but the night sky with the moon and the starry skies is much more influential in affecting life and well, growing seasons and whatever, and all those things. So in archaeology they will say like, well, we found this bone in South Africa, and it's so old, 90,000 years, and we found 28 scratches on it or whatever. It should be 27, 28, or 29, and then they will name the thesis like this. This should be a calculation system for following the moon, and there are many very simple, clever ways to work with the rhythm of nature around, and I think it's bored down into all beings, not only humans. So I think it's kind of, well, then, like Bridgette, I'm desperately trying to invite back Bridgette in the conversation. Will you say nothing? Because we could try to.
Well,
we
actually,
are
I have something that I wanted to say, but
great.
I'm mostly listening because I'm hearing a lot of things that I don't know in my mind. But I was thinking, what would be one of the things that I would do in medicine? And one of the things that I do is I visually inspect the person, the animal or the person. So usually I can get hints about chromosomal issues by looking at the visual, animal or the person. Because in the normal sequence, like of, human and how we're formed and the structure and everything else, we have repeating things. Like, for example, normally, the length of a person's foot is the same as their forearm, and there's all kinds of different parts of the body that, you can do this kind of stuff with. So you have this, kind of sequence, a sequence of how things work. And when you see things that don't match up in the sequencing, then you know that there's some kind of, I know by looking at people that, where I could head down the road is that maybe they might have something chromosomally going on if they don't have these repeaters where everything kind of fits together in a sequence visually, when I look at people. So I was thinking, like, that's kind of like maybe how I might have a relationship to like the Fibonacci sequence or something, because I can see that normal functioning under good conditions, structures and things like that, they're visible, right? So it's kind of not exactly like what you guys
I
are
would
talking
like
about,
to,
but it's where I can take it.
I'd like to help with you with this visual comprehension. If you'll pull that first chart back up, it will help. I'll show you the counterbalance a little deeper. But I want you to, as a host, to ask questions. There's no such thing as stupid questions except for the ones that you failed to ask when you had the opportunity to.
Very
no,
true.
I'm a major question asker. This is just a topic that is, usually I talk a lot on topics, but this one's just out of my range. So here, okay, so I'm going to screen share.
Thank you.
And Bridgette, it's because numbers is, many people will either from astrology or whatever, they will have like relationships to numbers even if they hate math. So now we seem to have four guys here, and I hear more than me are interested in music, and math and music goes very neatly together. So
yeah, I
it's
will demonstrate that as well if you would
that's
like.
very
But
common with keen mathematicians equals musician. It's very very. But it's more than
interesting.
occasionally
Yes.
it happens. So and that's just the rhythm of life, because in old times the noblemen, they would have the three uniting roads, trivium. It would be like the basis of first the name of the world, then how does the name relate, and then why do we use this knowledge. That's the three steps of grammar, logic, and rhetoric. But then would come the quadrivium. That's the four arts of math, and then the first art will be music. That's math in time, and then it will be math in landscape, and that's will be. I fumble here because there's these four arts where math will go, and the last step will be astronomy. That will be maybe, I think, in several levels. It will be math, time, and space, and on all these rhythms. So numbers is as a general topic is easy to, like, for me. It's, for example, it took me a long time to discover like 13 is a really nice number, and any number carries the intention someone wants to pack it together with it. So in mathematics, when we study it, in my case, to become teacher, it's many times thrown upon so-called numerology. It's like that's gossip, that's not science, that's this, that, blah, blah, blah. But in secret, when you just walk out in any major city of the world, there will be a cornerstone, and that's like the Freemasons were the ones free in their trade to travel. Everyone else were bound to the land to do their trade, but the Freemasons, they were responsible for the delicate and intricate and sophisticated buildings of the ceremonial and ritual monuments around the world. So they were special tradesmen in things, and they would. It's like in the Bible there will be the mention of the cornerstone, but that's kind of we all know about the secret orders that call themselves Freemasons and so on. It's the same. These guys, they trade in and they connect their numbers to specific things, and they will even lay out complete cities along with a number story. They will talk in